Well, hey friends, Zach Zender here, and today we're wrapping up our walk through Carey Nieuwhof's 7 trends disrupting the church in 2026. And in each of these videos, we're asking it one last time. What does this trend mean for the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod? Carey's final trend is this, that the church has not yet braced for the coming AI revolution. Before we react, before we either go full fear or full hype, let's hear Carey explain what he sees coming with the AI revolution.
Finally, church trend number 7, the church has yet to brace for the coming AI revolution. So it's hard to say exactly when artificial intelligence will become the dominant story, not just in technology, which it already is, but in society as a whole, but it's probably going to happen sooner rather than later. Not only will AI be the biggest revolution humanity has ever seen, it'll be the biggest disruption we've ever experienced in our lifetimes and perhaps in human history. And while this is an incomplete list of the challenges the rise of AI is going to pose to civilization, and I don't use that term lightly, here are a few things that we should all be watching for in 2026. You've already seen the first seeds of each disruption happen, but I think what's going to happen is that in the future, we're going to see 10x to 1,000x the impact of what we're now seeing. So, disruption number 1, a white-collar job bloodbath. Many CEOs are already announcing layoffs in white-collar firms because of their adoption of AI. The same kind of disruption that came to farming in the 1980s and manufacturing in the 90s and the 2000s is about to hit professions like law, accounting, banking, and even engineering. Number 2, mental health challenges will increase as AI companionship surges. So currently, the number 1 use of AI is companionship and therapy. Do you know 72% of teens use AI companions, and 31% of them say they prefer their AI companions to real human beings? They're better than relationships that they have with their parents and friends. That's concerning, right? We've seen tragic teen suicides already that have resulted from relationships that teens created with AI, but expect those, sadly, to spike over the course of 2026. And then disruption number 3, deepfakes are going to erode the line between truth and fiction. So we already live in a post-truth culture, but the rise of AI-generated deepfakes that are honestly imperceptible from reality are going to fill our feeds more and more. I'm actually working on a new book called AI in the Future Church, How to Lead in a World You Barely Recognize. It's going to be released later in 2026. I'm going to go into a lot more detail, but imagine a scenario in which 25% of your congregation is unemployed. So as hard as it is to talk about, imagine a scenario in which 25% of your congregation is unemployed, and they happen to be your best givers, who once held the most lucrative jobs, right? Not only are they unemployed, but imagine a scenario in which they're unemployable because their industry is wiped out. And what happens when the mental health crisis that arises from AI makes the mental health crisis caused by social media look like the kiddie pool? What happens when your congregation, already discipled and twisted by an algorithm, can no longer tell the difference between truth and fiction and maybe no longer care? Right? It's important for church leaders to be spiritually, mentally, and theologically prepared to pastor people in a highly disruptive era. So, start now. If you want some good news, and we need some good news after that, I believe the church is perfectly positioned to minister to a world fundamentally disrupted by AI. Why? Not because we're super tech savvy or have the best prompts, but because as the world becomes more artificial, the church becomes more human. That's what we should do. And I believe the church's future direction is human connection.
And that closing line from Carey is the key, that as the world becomes more artificial, the church becomes more human. Trend number 5 showed us that algorithms are already discipling our people. Trend number 7 is about what happens when the technology that's shaping our people doesn't just curate content, but starts replacing jobs, relationships, and even reality itself. So Carey names 3 disruptions. Let's talk about each of them, what they mean for the LCMS. First, a white-collar job shock that is going to become a pastoral crisis. If you just start with employment, Carey's scenario, I don't think is sensational. It's pastoral, because what happens when 25% of your church is unemployed? And not just unemployed, but potentially unemployable because their industry gets wiped out. That's going to represent a giving problem for churches. It's also a shepherding problem, because unemployment hits more than income. It hits identity. It can trigger anxiety and shame and anger and depression and spiritual confusion. And this is one place where our Lutheran theology should feel incredibly relevant, because we don't believe your worth comes from your productivity. We believe it is received in Christ and named over you in baptism and lived out through your vocation. But the problem is, if many of our careers, our callings, our vocations, our jobs change, we'll need to ensure we help point people back to their primary identity, which is a chosen and son, daughter of Jesus Christ. The second thing is AI companionship and the loneliness wave that we can't ignore. AI companionship is exploding. Therapy bots, friends on demand, always available, always affirming, never difficult. For teens especially, the temptation is obvious. Why deal with messy humans when an AI companion feels safe? And so this is where the church has to become more church and not less, because Christianity is not an idea system, it's an incarnational faith. We have the waters of baptism, bread, wine, voices we can hear, hands, presence. And in a world of artificial intimacy, the church has an opportunity to become the place where people experience real community, real listening, real prayer, real accountability, real mercy. And number three, deepfakes and the collapse of trust. We already struggle with truth with humans, but deepfakes don't just confuse people, they train people to kind of doubt everything. And when people doubt everything long enough, they often stop caring about what's true. And this is a crisis for discipleship. Now, the Christian faith is rooted in historical reality, and the church has that, roots, deep history on our side. And my prayer is that when things in this world feel hollow, which they will, the church is actually well positioned to give people what they most need, as we talk about the hollow tomb, which brings great fulfillment and nothing that AI can touch. Now, for those that haven't seen it, the latest LCMS CTCR document on AI and sermons and how to use online resources is worth reading. And I raise a lot of concerns about the LCMS, but hey, at least on this document where they're talking about how to use online things, at least they emailed it right. We're making progress. But seriously, the document raises real concerns. It mentions, when it talks about AI, that sermons are not just content delivery, but pastoral care. They're law and gospel application that require a shepherd to know their flock. That pastors shouldn't outsource the pulpit, and that using AI could transform, or undermine rather, trust in the pastoral office. All of that is valid. But I want to push back just a little, because I need more help. The document does a strong job naming problems and a weaker job offering practical solutions for leaders who are already being confronted with AI in real time. Here's one of the tensions that doesn't fully resolve, because we have precedent in Lutheranism for reading or adapting sermons written by others, Luther's sermons, church fathers, even historic sermons on special occasions. And so one of my questions, again, I'm just wondering, is if we can read a sermon written by Luther or a church father, why is it automatically different if AI produces a sermon that is both deeply Lutheran and doctrinally sound? Now, I want to be clear. I'm not advocating for pastors to preach AI-generated sermons as a normal practice or even ever, but I think we got to admit there's a potential double standard here that deserves clearer thinking. What's the difference? I think that really has to be explored more. But if the LCMS is going to speak into this moment, my main point is we need more than warnings. We need solutions. We need answers to real questions like, what is appropriate assistance versus inappropriate use? What transparency ought to exist with congregations around the use of AI? What guardrails could help pastors use AI for research without replacing the deep work? What does faithful pastoral authorship look like in an age where these tools are available? We also, by the way, need a ton of patience and grace, as this is still a pretty new technology. And so what should LCMS churches do now? Let me give 3 practical directions that I'm holding loosely in this moment. First is let's teach discernment as a discipleship skill. Deepfakes and AI persuasion are coming for your people. And so train them to slow down, verify, and to not be emotionally hijacked. Let them know that these exist. Number 2 is build more embodied connections, not just better content. If AI companionship is rising, the church has got to get better at what the church does, which is friendship and hospitality and mentoring and physically being present. The church cannot compete with AI on speed, but it can win on presence and creating spaces for real relationships to grow. Let's do that. Number 3, talk about AI directly. Don't ignore it. Don't panic about it. Don't pretend it's neutral. Don't act like you know everything about it either. But help your people understand what it is and what it isn't, and teach them how to potentially use it wisely without outsourcing their thinking, their relationships, or their spiritual lives to it. Give them categories for discernments, not just warnings. If we don't disciple our people well on how to navigate AI, something else and somebody else will. And these are not side conversations anymore, they're frontline ministry. And because of that, because this is the final trend and perhaps the biggest disruptor, we're not ending this series on the 7 trends quietly. This Wednesday at noon Central, I'm hosting a live conversation inside of Carey Nieuwhof's Art of Leadership Academy, totally free, with Kenny Jang, who is one of the sharpest voices helping churches think wisely and practically about AI. We're going to talk tools, ethics, pastoral applications, and how churches can prepare without freaking out. It is free. The link is in the description, and I would love to see you there. Again, I'll repeat something Carey said. As the world becomes more artificial, the church becomes more human. So the final question I'll leave you with is this. I'd love to hear. What is one practical step your church can take this month to become more deeply, unmistakably human in an AI age? Hey, I hope you enjoyed the 7 Trends series. If it's helped you, share this or my channel with another church leader, because we don't get to opt out of these moments. We just get to decide whether we'll lead faithfully through them. And I hope and I pray that you do, because Jesus is worth our best, and all of this impacts discipleship. Let's keep raising great disciples. God bless you.